Well, hopefully you came back because I was so incredibly entertaining and informative that you wanted to hear more about the human body. Alright, so we are going to talk about the senses. So we're going to go over these pretty briefly, but I will give you kind of a basis for the senses as lots happens when it comes to the senses. So first of all, before we get into the senses in the human, perspective and from the human body, we're going to talk about the early eye. Because eyes have been around for a long time, believe it or not. These lovely things called euglenas were the first kind of organisms to really have what we call an eye. So they've come a long way. I shouldn't say these are the first organisms. That's not really an accurate statement. But these are some of the early eyes that came about in a long, long time ago when some of the first organisms arose. But basically, this eye on these euglenas were just to kind of lead them to light. So obviously, they could carry on photosynthesis because these euglenas are pretty much made up of chlorophyll. And they have all these, the chloroplasts are made up of chlorophyll, but these eye spots would basically lead them to light in order to undergo photosynthesis more and more. Isn't that a pretty picture? So let's talk about vision and the eye. There's so much that I could go into. You'll see a little bit more when you go through the cow eye dissection, but this is pretty cool to get to know what happens in your eye and why your eye is the way it is and so forth. So first of all, there's a lot of different things as you can see. I'm not going to test you on these specific things, but there's a lot of components to the eye. You have these outer components, such as the conjunctiva, which is a membrane that, if you guys have ever had pink eye, that's conjunctivitis. So itis means inflammation of. So you have inflammation of the conjunctiva. You have the iris, which is your colored portion of the eye, and they're actual muscles, okay, that basically cause the pupil to dilate or constrict. A pupil is actually just kind of a hole. There's nothing other than just kind of a hole. So that iris is what causes it to constrict and dilate. You have the cornea, which is a very important protective layer that I'll talk about when we talk about I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into some of the diseases and different things that happen to the eye. And back here you have obviously lots of blood vessels here that obviously supply the eye with blood. The optic nerve, which leads back to the brain. You have the retina, which is a very important layer and basically allows us to see what we see. And the vitreous humor is the lovely jelly-like stuff that's in the eyeball. So when you guys go to the cow dissection, that's kind of, to me, one of the grossest parts. But there's a lot of different things in this eye that allow us to see what we see. So within the retina, remember, the retina is, let me go back up one more time. The retina lies basically, and I'm going to follow it all along, right back here, all the way back to here. The retina is this little kind of sheet. It's a really thin sheet of very specialized cells, okay? And these specialized cells are known as the rod and the cone cells. They're found in the retina, and they're actually shaped according to their name. So a cone cell looks like a cone, a rod cell looks like a rod. But these rod cells are basically what allows us to see at night, because rod cells are detecting different shades of gray, basically, okay? So kind of our black and white vision. So we don't see color at night because it's dark, right? So that's when our rod cells are activated, and really active, should I say. And then cone cells are basically responsible for us being able to see color. So used in lighted times, so during the day when we're able to see those colors, those cone cells are active. They're found in the fovea centralis, which is a part of the retina. So it's a very specific part where color is detected and basically, understood as different colors, as when that signal goes to the brain can say, okay, yes, that's red. And all of that has so much to do with actually the reflection of colors and so forth, but we won't get into that. There's a lot. That's why hopefully someday we offer anatomy, because I will go into that in so much more detail. But the rod and cone cells are for our vision and seeing different colors versus not seeing colors with the rod cells. Okay. So how we really see, and this is a very basic version, but I like this diagram because it does help. So basically you see an object. So you're looking at, little Billy over here, right? Oh no, it says Sam. You're looking at Sam, okay? And the light waves from Sam, because everything is reflecting light. That's why we see things, okay? Believe it or not, everything reflects light back at us. So the light waves coming off of Sam are going into the pupil, and they're being focused on the retina through the lens. I forgot to point out the lens. The lens is a very, very important part because it actually focuses that image on the retina. But believe it or not, it focuses it upside down, okay? So due to the lens, it's because of the lens, and you could actually do a lab. I used to do this in my old school where we would take a lens and you could actually see that it was basically upside down. But what happens is that that signal is sent to the optic nerve to the brain, which is the occipital lobe. And the occipital lobe is where it actually interprets what you're seeing and turns it right side up before you even realize that you're seeing something upside down. So it's kind of crazy to think about it, that everything you're looking at, you actually are seeing upside down, but your brain flips it right side up before you even know that. So it's kind of cool. But obviously then it interprets that, and then it says all feeling, meaning, interpretation come from that occipital lobe, and that's how we basically see things and then make inferences based on what we're seeing. Okay, so that's kind of a simplified version. So now there's diseases that come with everything. When we talk about the human body, there are diseases. Unfortunately, when our body is out of homeostasis, then comes in the diseases. Okay, so color blindness, and I have a color blindness test for you guys to check out, but color blindness is a genetic thing typically, okay, unless you have for some reason some trauma to that fovea centralis where the cone cells are located, which is typically very, 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 very uncommon. So typically color blindness is going to be genetic, and I keep saying typically, that's my favorite word tonight. But most often color blindness is going to fall within males because color blindness is found on one particular chromosome, which is the only chromosome that males have, which is the Y chromosome. We as females, if you're a female watching this, we have two X chromosomes, okay? Males have an X and a Y, and that color blindness gene is found on the Y chromosome, so therefore it's not really showing up in a lot of women. Not to say that women can't be colorblind. It can happen, but typically it's in males and it's a genetic disorder, okay? So basically this is kind of how a color blindness test would look. They would say, what number would you see? And if you had a particular type of color blindness, maybe you couldn't see shades of green, you would not be able to see that there is a 5 written in there, okay? So that's one of the tests. There's many types of color blindness though. Okay, glaucoma is another type of disease that happens with the eye, pressure against the eye that leads to blindness if not treated. This is kind of a scary thing because what happens is this vitreous humor, which is that kind of a liquid jelly-like stuff that's in the eyeball, it builds up and it increases the pressure to the point where it starts to block off the circulation, the blood vessels, and ultimately will cause blindness, but there's no side effects. You can't feel glaucoma. They have to test for it. So if you know that there's anybody in your family that has glaucoma, you want, and typically it happens as you get older. It's not necessarily a young person's disease, but once blindness occurs from glaucoma, you can never regain it because it's basically destroying some of these blood vessels, and ultimately kind of the optic nerve does not get what it needs in order to be able to see everything. Okay, so very important that you kind of be aware of glaucoma. And then cataracts. I told you I would get back to the cornea. The cornea is kind of this one protective layer that basically can start to film over as sometimes as people age. So you see this a lot in older people. And this is what it looks like. If you've ever looked at, maybe old granny and she's kind of got this clouded bizzo going on, well, that's a cataract. And it's very easy to take care of. The doctor actually just peels back that cornea and then kind of scrapes off that film. So voila, you're done. This is what it would look like if you were looking through a cataract lens. So it's kind of very blurry. It could get, pretty bad. So pretty easy to cure though. And then there's also something called diabetic retinopathy. So this is typically due to, damage of the blood vessels in the eye. And if any of you guys know anything about diabetes, and then anybody that has diabetes, if you do not take care of yourself, it really puts a lot of pressure and a lot of strain on your blood vessels. So lots of things can happen if you do not take care and manage your diabetes. One thing is diabetic retinopathy, where basically, you start to have this blindness because you're damaging those blood vessels. And again, you need those blood vessels in order to be able to, have that proper vision, okay? So this is what it could get worse, and progressively it'll just turn black. Obviously, if you manage your diabetes, you won't have that. And then some common vision problems. Myopia, nearsightedness, hyperopia, farsightedness. I want you to notice the shape of the eyeballs when it comes to this. So normal vision, here's a normal shaped eyeball, right? Nice and round or so. And basically when light comes in through this pupil, here's the lens. The light is focused, but then basically, anytime you have light, this lens is going to bend those light rays. So in a normal eyeball, it's going to bend those light rays and it's going to land right on the retina, which is really important because that is where the image needs to be focused on, okay? But when we're talking about nearsightedness and farsightedness, we're talking about different shapes of your eyeball. So the reason why you might be nearsighted or farsighted typically has to do with the shape of your eyeball. So if you're nearsighted, you have more of an oblong shaped eyeball. And what happens is then your lens is focusing that image in front of the retina. So it's going to be blurry. So in order to correct that, you have a particular type of glasses that causes that image to be then basically put back on the retina, focused exactly on the retina. Farsightedness is the opposite. Your eyeball is a little bit shorter. So then that your lens is focusing that image behind the retina, and again, it's blurry. So doctors obviously have many tests that they do in order to figure out which you are, and obviously they correct that with different glasses, and each glasses has a different type of lens in order to correct where that image is focused on, okay? So that's pretty much what's happening with vision problems. So again, correcting these. So it's all about the lenses. So the lens that you have in order to correct, so basically if you have hyperopia or farsightedness, you will need, remember that's where the image falls behind the retina, you end up having this convex lens in your glasses, which then causes that to be focused a little bit closer or a little bit, further up, okay? Where myopia or nearsightedness, you end up having a concave lens that will focus it a little further back so that it pushes that focused image back on the retina, okay? So that's how we are correcting, the vision problems. Hello, it's getting late. Okay, on to the ear. So big old ears, obviously. Now, ears are very important, obviously, for detecting sound. And I think I have a better picture here. So follow me once again. I'm not going to go into this in too much detail. But you have sound waves. They're coming in here. And they come in here through this external auditory canal, which is the big opening of the ear. And those sound waves are coming in here, and they hit this eardrum, or the tympanic membrane is what it's called. And obviously, it's a very thin membrane, and it causes it to vibrate. And when sound waves cause that to vibrate, then it causes these three teeny tiny bones in your ear to vibrate. So here's the tympanic membrane. Your malleus, incus, and stapes are the three tiniest bones in your body, and they're found in your ear. And all of these start to vibrate. And then see here, the stapes has this nice little flat piece right here. And that butts up to something called the oval window. And the oval window basically leads to this cochlea and also the semicircular canals. But ultimately in the cochlea, there are these tiny little hairs that will vibrate and basically send a signal through this vestibular cochlear nerve to your brain to interpret again that sound. So it's kind of cool that all of these sound waves and all the vibrations ultimately send a signal to your brain to say, here's what you're hearing, here's how loud it is, here's what you're hearing, here's what it sounds like, do you like it, do you hate that sound, and so forth. The semicircular canals are more for balance than hearing. So you'll hear about, anybody that has vertigo typically has some issues with the semicircular canals. Motion sickness has a lot to do with the semicircular canals. So it has a lot to do with balance there, because there's a fluid in there that basically makes you feel kind of like you're steady. And so, anyways, just that's going to be quick and short and sweet. So again, a little bit closer, deeper look at it. So you've got sound that comes in from the ear canal, from the nice big opening, and here's the tympanic membrane, and it causes the vibrations into the oval window, which then in turn causes the vibration in this cochlea, okay, where those little hairs are sensing those vibrations, and it'll send a nerve impulse through that auditory nerve to your brain. Okay, easy as pie, right? So keeping those ears and eyes sharp. You want to obviously protect wearing these really cool glasses, right? Or maybe a 2-in-1. You could wear glasses and poke your ears full. No, I used to work at an airport out on the ramp where I would throw baggage, and so it was very important to wear, especially stuff to protect your ears, because those jets could absolutely blow your eardrum and really damage those teeny little hairs in your cochlea. So don't stick stuff in your ears. I don't know why you would, but maybe you have some weird fetish and it's really fun. Don't do it. You could, even a Q-tip, if you stick a Q-tip, really, doctors will tell you not to stick Q-tips really in your ear, because you don't know how deep you're going, and you can really damage some of your parts of your ear. Watch the decibels at which you're listening. I know a lot of people are into their little headphones and such, the little skull candies and stuff, but believe it or not, you are doing your ears a huge disservice. We typically listen to music and whatever else at way too loud of decibels, and it's what it does is it starts to kind of dull those hairs that that detect that vibration, and ultimately you'll start to deaden them, and they won't detect that vibration, and you'll start to lose your hearing. Make sure you're getting your vitamin A for your eyes, because it does that does help. I mean, it's not like, oh yes, you eat a bunch of carrots and you're going to go from being blind to all of a sudden being able to see, but there is some benefits to that. Give your eyes a break when reading and studying, so take some breaks, especially from your computer, okay? That can really put some strain on your eyes. Wear glasses or contacts if you have them, because if you don't, your eyes tend to get worse. Wear sunglasses to protect your eyes. Read in lighted areas. Stop rubbing your eyes with those grimy hands. Seriously, your hands are so dirty, and the quickest way to get sick is picking your nose and rubbing your eyes. So, don't pick your nose and rub your eyes at the same time, because you're pretty much guaranteed to get sick. No, unless you have clean hands. All right, trouble with the ears. Obviously, there's deafness. People that either were born deaf or have, gone deaf at some point in their life. Usually that can be genetic as well, but there also can be some trauma to the ear that could cause that. Dizziness and loss of balance, and otitis. Otitis is ringing of the ears, okay? Some people have chronic ringing of the ears, which would drive me crazy. There's also ear infections, okay? You have what we call otitis media, which is a middle ear infection, which is typically the most common, which sometimes requires antibiotics, and sometimes it's a viral thing that will go away on its own. But ultimately you have the fluid that kind of builds up in that area, and it creates that infection that you have to get rid of due to some kind of bacteria, okay? All right, we're almost done with the senses. So, tongue and tasting. I want to let you guys know that in your course, the lesson actually has something wrong, and it kind of bothers me. I cannot change it, but they have talked about, and this has been changed a couple years back, where it used to be thought that you had different parts of your tongue where you could taste different tastes, those sour, sweet, bitter, salty, and so forth. But they have come up with that is not true, that basically you can detect those tastes all around your tongue. So that no longer is true, that you have certain places where you can detect those tastes. You actually can detect them on all parts of your tongue. But ultimately you have taste buds for tasting. They're actually more than just the sour, bitter, sweet, and salty taste. There's a new one out. So a new taste is called umami, which is what we kind of can picture as the savory, meaty taste, like an MSG, okay? So I love sushi, and I love Asian food, which makes me think of that savory, kind of that meaty taste, especially when you kind of put soy sauce and kind of meat together, if that makes sense. So you probably can picture that, but that is actually an additional taste. So it's not just the sour, bitter, sweet, and salty. Now there's a new one called umami. There's actually no particular place where you taste those tastes. All the taste buds are actually detecting all those flavors. So again, that's not what's taught in your lesson, but that is the truth. I wanted to tell you guys real quick that I took this awesome class at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. It was on the genetics of taste, and they were doing, they still are, I think, running that right now, but they're doing this massive experiment on people that are called super tasters. So basically, people that can taste beyond what the normal people can taste. I am not a super taster, and what they do is they paint your tongue blue, and the reason why they do that is because you can see then your taste buds a little bit better, and they take a picture of your tongue, and then they count how many taste buds. And typically, people with more taste buds than the average are super tasters, and they can taste beyond kind of these normal sour, bitter, sweet, salty. So it's just kind of an interesting thing. So I could go on again about that, but there was some really cool things that I learned. But nonetheless, those are kind of the basics about tasting. Now you have many different types of taste buds, okay? And within these taste buds, you actually have all these taste receptors, okay? So you have different, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 different types of taste buds: the circumvallate, the fungiform, the folate, and the filiform. And there's not a whole lot of difference in these. They're all detecting taste pretty much, but they are typically different in size and shape and kind of looks. Okay, you have some of the bigger ones on the back of your tongue. If you were to open up your mouth and see, you could see those. And the fungiform and the filiform are kind of a little bit smaller. So, okay. So stop to smell the roses. Let me talk a little bit about the smell, and then we'll be done with this. It's pretty simple though. Obviously, you have chemicals. Any kind of scent you smell, perfume, something nasty smelling like a fart, they're all chemicals, okay? And these chemicals basically enter in through the nostril, and you have these receptor cells that are found in your nose. Not that you can feel them, okay? They're within the membranes, but these receptor cells will detect those chemicals and send a nerve impulse through the olfactory bulb up to your brain to interpret what that smell is, okay? And so I want you guys to know that, say for instance, a fart, because farts are funny, right? But a fart doesn't necessarily, that smell, it will start to dissipate in the air after a while, but the smell doesn't actually go away. What happens is these receptor cells kind of get dulled to the same chemical, okay? So if you take for instance, if anyone lives near Greeley, it kind of smells like feedlot because that's pretty much what's there. It's pretty stinky. But the people that live there, they don't really smell it anymore because these receptor cells become kind of dead into it, and it's not going to continue to send the signal to your brain saying, oh my gosh, what am I smelling? Get me out of here. So just know that, it's a little different than what we think, that, the smell just kind of goes away. Typically, it doesn't go away. Those chemicals are still in the air, but your nose isn't sensing it and sending that signal to your brain. Okay? So, we are done with the senses. The next time I see you for the last part of sections 3 and 4 is going to be the circulatory system. So, please come back again and join me.